Welcome to another episode from the Veterinary Research Channel. Today, we delve into a fascinating study concerning the cardiac health of a majestic dog breed, the Irish Wolfhound, and the potential impact of their diet. As devoted pet owners and veterinary professionals, we are constantly seeking to understand the intricate relationship between nutrition and well-being in our beloved animal companions. This research, titled Echocardiographic and Electrocardiographic Findings in Irish Wolfhounds Eating High-Pulse or Low-Pulse Diets, published in the Journal of Veterinary Internal Medicine in 2024, offers valuable insights into this very connection. In recent years, the veterinary community has been actively investigating a secondary form of dilated cardiomyopathy, a serious heart condition in dogs. Unlike primary dilated cardiomyopathy, which is often linked to genetics in certain breeds like Doberman Pinschers and Great Danes, this secondary form appears to be associated with diet. Specifically, attention has been drawn to non-traditional diets that are high in pulses, such as peas, lentils, chickpeas, and dry beans, and possibly also potatoes and sweet potatoes. Studies have suggested that apparently healthy dogs consuming these high-pulse diets might exhibit several cardiac changes, including a larger left ventricular diameter, reduced systolic function, elevated levels of a cardiac biomarker called troponin I, and a higher occurrence of irregular heartbeats, known as ventricular premature complexes, or VPCs. Interestingly, some of these changes have shown improvement when the dogs' diets were switched. The Irish Wolfhound presents a unique area of interest in this discussion. This breed is known to be predisposed to a specific type of primary dilated cardiomyopathy, called Irish Wolfhound Cardiomyopathy, or IWCM, which seems to have a genetic basis. The characteristics of IWCM often include an irregular heart rhythm called atrial fibrillation, an enlargement of the left atrium of the heart that seems disproportionate to the enlargement of the left ventricle, and often only minimal changes in the heart muscle's ability to contract effectively. Given this predisposition to a primary heart condition, the question arises whether diet might play an additional role in the cardiac health of Irish Wolfhounds. While some Irish Wolfhounds with more typical dilated cardiomyopathy findings, similar to what is seen in Doberman Pinschers, have been included in studies investigating diet-associated DCM, it remained largely unknown whether seemingly healthy Irish Wolfhounds consuming high-pulse diets would show any electrocardiographic or echocardiographic differences compared to those on low-pulse diets. Therefore, the researchers in this study set out to compare the electrocardiographic and echocardiographic findings between Irish Wolfhounds eating diets high in pulses and those eating diets low in pulses. Their hypothesis was that the dogs consuming high-pulse diets would have significantly larger left ventricular diameters, lower systolic function, and a greater number of VPCs compared to their counterparts on low-pulse diets. To investigate this, the researchers conducted a retrospective study, meaning they looked back at data that had already been collected. The data came from cardiology screening clinics held at national and regional Irish Wolfhound specialty shows between October 2018 and May 2021. The Irish Wolfhound Foundation played a crucial role in advertising these clinics and helping to recruit Irish Wolfhounds, including both breeding age and older dogs. The Irish Wolfhound Club of America also encourages annual electrocardiogram screenings for all Irish Wolfhounds, and the Irish Wolfhound Foundation provided financial support to make these examinations more accessible. During these screening clinics, each dog underwent an echocardiogram, which is an ultrasound of the heart, performed by one of two board-certified veterinary cardiologists. Standard techniques were used while the dogs were standing, and measurements were taken over 3 consecutive heartbeats, using both two-dimensional and M-mode echocardiography. The criteria for diagnosing Irish Wolfhound cardiomyopathy included both dilation of the left ventricle and reduced ability of the left ventricular muscle to contract, along with enlargement of the left atrium. Additionally, a 1-minute electrocardiogram, specifically a lead 2 rhythm strip, was performed on each dog while standing. These electrocardiograms were then reviewed by one of the same 2 board-certified veterinary cardiologists. To be included in this study, the dogs had to have had a first-time echocardiogram at one of the shows within the specified time frame, be at least 1 year old, primarily eat a dry kibble diet, as diet-associated DCM seems most linked to dry foods, and have sufficient information available about their diet to categorize it as either high-pulse or low-pulse. The researchers determine each dog's main diet, meaning the diet providing the majority of their daily calories, either at the time of the show, or by contacting the owner or breeder afterward. For the purpose of the study, a diet was classified as high-pulse if it listed peas, lentils, chickpeas, or dry beans within the top 10 ingredients on the ingredient list. A diet was considered lentils if none of these pulses appeared in the top 10 ingredients. If the food label wasn't available within 6 months of the echocardiogram, the researchers used an internet archive to find the ingredient list as close as possible to the date of the examination. In cases where the exact flavor of the food couldn't be determined, all possible ingredient lists for products matching the known dietary information, for example, a specific brand's grain-free chicken diet, were reviewed. If there still wasn't enough information to confidently categorize the diet, the dog was excluded from the study. Dogs eating homemade or raw diets were also excluded, as were dogs with known pre-existing heart conditions. If a dog had multiple echocardiograms during the study period, only the data from the first examination was used. The owners reported their dog's body weights, and the researchers assessed each dog's body condition using a standard 9-point scoring system. After careful data collection and analysis, the researchers arrived at their findings. Out of the initial 148 Irish Wolfhounds that had first-time echocardiograms during the study period, 97 dogs met all the criteria and were included in the final analysis. Of these, 35 dogs, 36%, were eating high-pulse diets and 62 dogs, 64%, were on low-pulse diets. The study revealed no significant differences between the two diet groups in terms of age, sex, body weight, body condition score, or the prevalence of atrial fibrillation, another type of irregular heartbeat. Furthermore, there were no statistically significant differences in any of the echocardiographic measurements between the high-pulse and low-pulse diet groups. This included measurements of the interventricular septum and left ventricular walls in diastole, the left ventricular internal diameter in both diastole and systole, the ratio of the left atrial to aortic diameters, and the fractional shortening, which is a measure of how well the left ventricle is pumping. Additionally, there was no significant difference in the number of dogs diagnosed with Irish Wolfhound Cardiomyopathy between the two diet groups. However, a key finding emerged from the electrocardiogram data. A significantly higher percentage of dogs in the high-pulse diet group, 17%, had ventricular premature complexes, or VPCs, compared to the low-pulse diet group, only 2%. This difference was statistically significant. For the dogs in whom the exact number of VPCs during the 1-minute ECG was recorded, the number ranged from 1 to 7. The other 3 dogs with VPCs were all noted to have a single VPC. Interestingly, 2 of the dogs with VPCs were owned by the same person and were eating the same diet, although they were not closely related. These results led the researchers to several important points in their discussion. The finding that VPCs were significantly more common in apparently healthy Irish Wolfhounds eating high-pulse diets compared to those eating low-pulse diets aligns with the results of a previous study involving 188 dogs of different breeds. That study also found a higher prevalence of VPCs in dogs eating diets with peas, lentils, or potatoes in the top 10 ingredients. While the prevalence of VPCs in both that study and the current one was relatively low, the consistency between the findings suggests a potential link between high-pulse diets and this type of cardiac electrical abnormality. It is worth noting that other studies investigating non-traditional diets in apparently healthy dogs have not consistently reported data on VPCs. However, a prospective study of dogs eating non-traditional diets who had subclinical cardiac abnormalities found that 13% had VPCs at the time of diagnosis, and one of these dogs sadly experienced sudden death during the follow-up period. Contrary to their initial hypothesis, the researchers did not find significant differences in echocardiographic measurements between the Irish Wolfhounds eating high-pulse and low-pulse diets. This contrasts with some, but not all previous studies in apparently healthy dogs on non-traditional diets, where some studies reported no significant differences in left ventricular size or systolic function. The researchers suggest that these differences in findings across studies could be due to variations in breed or the design of the studies. Interestingly, one cross-sectional study in pet dogs found no echocardiographic differences between diet groups, but did observe that dogs eating high-pulse/potato diets had significantly higher concentrations of a sensitive cardiac biomarker called troponin I, in addition to the increased VPCs. The researchers of the current study noted that measuring cardiac troponin I would have been valuable, but was not a standard part of the ongoing Irish Wolfhound screenings. The authors acknowledged several important limitations of their study. A major limitation is that heart arrhythmias were identified from a short 1-minute rhythm strip, rather than a continuous 24-hour Holter monitor recording. This means that the true prevalence of VPCs and other arrhythmias could be higher or lower than what was detected. However, they noted that Holter monitors are now being used in Irish Wolfhounds where VPCs are found on screening electrocardiograms, which will provide more comprehensive data in the future. Another limitation is the relatively small sample size, particularly in the locals diet group, which could increase the risk of failing to detect a real difference if one existed. Additionally, while the dogs had physical examinations and owners provided medical histories, the study did not definitively rule out other underlying systemic diseases that could potentially cause VPCs. Furthermore, body weights were reported by owners and not directly measured, which could introduce inaccuracies, and body condition scores were assessed by different individuals, potentially leading to some variability. Regarding the dietary information, the researchers pointed out that the ideal way to classify diets for research on diet-associated DCM is still evolving. In this study, they focused on the presence of pulses within the top 10 ingredients, based on recent research highlighting the potential role of pulses in the current increase in diet-associated DCM. The retrospective collection of diet data meant that sufficient information was not always initially available, requiring the researchers to contact owners or breeders later. Importantly, the study did not determine how long the dogs had been eating their specific diets at the time of the echocardiogram, which could lead to misclassification if a dog had recently switched diets. Similarly, while ingredient lists close to the examination date were used, product formulations can change over time, which was not accounted for in the analysis. Despite these limitations, this study adds to the growing body of evidence, suggesting a potential association between high-pulse diets and VPCs in apparently healthy dogs. The researchers conclude that given these findings, further investigation into this possible link is warranted. Thank you for listening to the Veterinary Research Channel. A link for the reference paper is in the video description. Remember to test your knowledge by answering the questions in the description, and as always, keep those minds inspired, hearts light, and tails wagging.